Hi guys, how are you? Today I want to talk a little bit about the eyeshadow palettes. I have 6 eyeshadow palettes that I think are the best palettes of the year. Now one palette is not a new release in this year, it was kind of relaunch I think this year or last year, I'm not sure. It's kind of not available anymore, but I still think it is pretty amazing palette. It was discovery for me, so I decided to put this palette in. That being said, let's jump into the best palettes for 2018. The first palette that I would like to talk about is a collaboration of one of my favorite YouTubers, and it kind of was a discovery for me of the brand itself. I never had anything from this brand, so well, I kind of had big expectation, to be honest, and when I got the palette I was not disappointed. The palette that I'm talking about is collaboration between Kathleen Lights and Colourpop, the Dream Street palette. This is a super amazing palette and it currently still in stock in Colourpop, and I think right now it's on sale for like $12 US, $12.80 US, sorry. And this is a pretty amazing palette, and quite frankly one of the favorite palettes for the year, actually one of my favorite palettes in the entire collection. I reached for this palette so many times and I cannot say enough for this beautiful gorgeous palette. Metallics are just out of this world. They're creamy, they're buttery, they don't need any Fix Plus, anything, like you don't need to wet the brush to apply these eyeshadows on. They are amazing, the mattes blend beautifully, the palette is so stunning. I would highly recommend it. This is super affordable, beautiful palette. Now Colourpop not always does great on the palettes, but when it does, it is pretty amazing, and I think this palette deserves so much more. I think it's an amazing palette and I'm super in love with it. I don't get all the palettes from Colourpop, but some of the palettes are pretty damn good, and this is one of those. Now, since we're talking about the Colourpop, I have one more palette that I would like to share, and I think this palette kind of doesn't get enough love, and I think it is an amazing palette, and it's the Good Sport palette by Colourpop. At the moment, it's also on sale and still in stock, and I really like the shadows, I really like the whole color selection. It is it's kind of really fall looking palette, and I don't see people talking about it, and I reached for this palette so many times now, and the shimmers are absolutely stunning. They're so soft and they're buttery and they're creamy and they're such a joy to look at. It just I'm in love with this palette and I think it's amazing. Maybe the color scheme that what kind of puts people off. Honestly, when I was purchasing, I was like, I don't care for the palette, I'm just purchasing to review it. But when I bought it, when I tried it, when I played with it, I kind of fell in love with it, and I'm super glad that I bought this palette. If you want to see a first impressions review on this palette, I will put the link in the description box below. You can go and check the video if you want to. The same thing for the Dream Street palette. I also have a review like back in the day. But yeah, I'll put that one as well. I have quite a few affordable palettes and I could not be happier to have so many affordable palettes. That means affordable brands really do super well when it comes to the palettes, and that makes me really happy and kind of sad at the same time. That means very not affordable brands don't do so well. So let's talk first about the affordable brand. Another palette that I have and I think is really amazing, and it took me some time to purchase it and I have no idea why I was postponing it for such a long time. It's not currently in stock, but I think a lot of people actually have this palette because it was super hype palette for longest time. I'm talking about BH Cosmetics Carli Bybel Deluxe Edition palette. Now, it took me some time to kind of purchase this palette. I saw it for 2 years, I think. She was talking about it. It was the first edition, then she kind of relaunched it and added some more colors in it. And I just couldn't figure out what is so special about the palette. It's more like all kind of mattes, but the shimmers are to die for. They're really pretty. They are really kind of foil looking, metallic, gorgeous, beautiful, non-chunky, beautiful shimmers, and it is more like a nude kind of palette, and it is really pretty. The mattes do blend really well. They're pretty insane actually. Like, it almost feels to me that the palette looks way better on your face than it actually looks in the palette. Like, in the palette for me it's like really nothing special, but when I apply it, it kind of transforms in this beautiful, beautiful shades. Also, the palette has a mirror, which is a plus. It's a bigger palette, but it's not super thick palette, so I really enjoyed this palette, and I really enjoy the color selection. And overall, if you were able to grab this palette, I don't think you are disappointed with this palette. Now, I have another palette from BH Cosmetics, and I think I already talked so much about this palette. I'm kind of beating a dead horse right now, but this palette is so good and I feel like people should have it. And I don't understand why you don't have it if you don't have it. It's BH Cosmetics Desert Oasis, and it's such an amazing, amazing palette. It is right now on sale. Right now when I'm recording the video, it is on sale for $11, which is amazing, crazy. You got so many gorgeous, beautiful shades, and my palette is broken. I feel like I want to purchase a new one just because this one is broken and it's kind of pissing me off. The shades, the color selection, mattes, everything is just so stunning. These are the few shades that I have. They're super, super full. They're beautiful. They wear all day. Mattes that you have, which are like 4 mattes, blend beautifully. Like, honestly, overall the palette is such an amazing, amazing investment. I'm truly like, you're gonna love it, you're gonna use it, and like, the reason why it is such an overhyped palette because it is that good, and I think you should get it while you still have chance to get it. You get some highlighters as well too, so that's a plus. Now let's talk about some high-end brands that I think worth your money. The first palette that I would like to talk about, and this palette kind of stole my heart, and I would say this is my favorite palette of the year. I really like it. I really like the color selection, the ways you can play with this palette. I don't think the palette gets enough love, and I think it deserves much more. And the palette that I'm talking about is Kat Von D 10-year anniversary eyeshadow palette. Now, I know to a lot of people this palette might appear a little bit intimidating with all these greens and blues, but no matter how many colors I put on my eyes, it always turns out really, really amazing. The shadows are just incredible, and they're sparkly, they're pigmented. I feel like the swatches don't do the palette justice. Honestly, I wear all these colors on my eyes, and every time it was beautiful. Like, the eyeshadows are truly, truly beautiful. I'm really in love, and I'm kind of happy to see a palette that is not into the warm shades. You know, like, just a colorful palette that is workable, that is beautiful, that is kind of a pleasure to stare at. And I kind of find this in this palette. This is something that this palette kind of inspires me to try new colors, to really play with things. It kind of tells me not to be scared of the colors, and I'm really happy that I have this palette. I think it is an amazing palette. I like the mattes, I like the shimmers. Yes, I do think it is a pretty expensive palette, but the whole feeling of the palette, the way it makes me feel when I apply it, the way it makes me feel when I play with it, it's just, there's something special about this palette in my heart. So this is truly, truly my favorite palette of the year. Then I have the palette that is not like this year release, but I think it is newish kind of palette, and I think it's pretty amazing and not super crazy expensive, even though I think it is expensive for what you get. This is Huda Beauty Mauve Obsessions palette. It is super tiny and cute. Now, I never purchased any other small palettes from this whole collection. I only have this one, and it kind of took me a while to purchase it. I was really like going and reading reviews and picking and choosing colors that I actually would want to wear on my eyes. And I was not disappointed when I got this palette. I did create multiple looks with this palette. I think it is absolutely amazing palette. Here are some of the swatches. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous. I really enjoy this palette. You got a mirror in the palette. It is still kind of on the pricey side as comparison to Colourpop or BH Cosmetics. You get way more eyeshadows and for a way more cheaper price. But if you were looking into purchasing something from Huda, I would recommend going for this one. I actually much more prefer this small eyeshadow palette than her new nude palette, even though it is pretty, it is beautiful to stare at. but I find that I got way more use out of this palette than out of nude palette, even though the nude palette is quite new. I just haven't reached for the palette since I did the first impressions on it, versus I reached a lot for this palette. Finally, we have Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry palette, and just the packaging kind of makes you want to buy this palette. I reached a lot for this palette. I think it is gorgeous. The packaging is really pretty, really holiday, Christmassy looking, and really nice to look at. Inside you have this beautiful cold tone shades, and I reached for this palette actually quite a lot, even though it is a fairly new release. I don't know if the camera picks it up, but you can see that I really dig into this palette quite a few times. And I wore it on so many different occasions, and I keep reaching for this palette. Overall, Anastasia palettes are usually pretty amazing. If you want to see first impressions on this palette, I'll put a link in my description box below as well. Actually, I'll put a link on all the videos that I did on all the palettes that we're talking right now, so that way you can see if you want to have a more in-depth review of the palette. Like, overall, Anastasia's palette are pretty amazing usually, most of the time, so really pretty. I like it. I like it a little bit more than Arena because I find that colors are more workable and more wearable in the normal environment, like people like me that I work in office, and I cannot always wear my purple eyeshadows to work, so this is more something, you know, in my alley that I can wear to work and be okay with that, and my boss not staring at me like I'm a crazy person wearing purple eyeshadow. So that's pretty much what I'm trying to say. I had quite a good year for the eyeshadows. I'm pretty happy that a lot of eyeshadows are super affordable. I'm super happy that a lot of eyeshadows are still available in the store. There are a few limited editions, but most of them are permanent collections. I would really recommend you all the eyeshadows that I just talked about. I think they're pretty amazing, and I think honestly if you purchase those eyeshadows, I'm pretty sure you're gonna be okay. So this concludes my review. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and you can also follow me on my Instagram, and I'll see you in my next video. Mwah.